Yeah, much love to the fans, much love to the women. Paul B, he do what he does, and he won't stop, and he won't quit with those things. Fans, till the world ends. All right, the Minnesota government incompetence factory is in full production of nothing. Well, it is that's going to be a good yield then, because if they're so incompetent, they're not producing anything. All right, what are they doing? How are they doing you dirty this week, Paul? Well, like what range of criteria are you throwing at them this week that they not possibly acquiesce to or sufficiently meet your needs? I'm guessing it's all the same. It's usually all the same. It's something to do with the fact that he has no fixed address, and it's like, I don't know, can't do anything about it. Are you going to do anything about it, Paul? Nah, not really. Can't do anything about it. And now he's got this. I think in the last video he said something about like, I'm a homeless man in a disabled car. So the car is now like part of this, paradigm. It's part of. It's another like point of sympathy for him. It's like, I am a homeless man, and this is my disabled car. It's like a mother introducing them. It's like, I'm a single mother, and this is my disabled child. So you're like, oh, this is even worse. All right, Paul. What are we going to actually get something done today? Are we going to come to some sort of resolution or conclusion where there's possibly a pathway forward for you, or is it just like there's just things stacking up like a Jenga game or something?
The tags on my car are therefore now 19 days overdue.
19. So the tags are out. The car is uninsured, so he doubly can't drive it, and it's this chicken or the egg kind of issue he's having. So if he can't get the tags replaced and insure his car, so he's kind of like trapped in this like scenario where he can't solve one without the other, and he can't solve the other without the other one. If you know what I mean.
I do not have the money to renew them, and I will not have the money to renew them. Even if I did, I have no place I can mail them to, since I no longer have a workplace to mail them to. So, I want to make this clear while I'm still here. I did everything I could to be responsible, to obey the law, to follow the rules. But this place is not set up to allow homeless people to follow the rules. We are forced to break the law in ways like...
No, you've created the metagame, Paul. You've created this metagame where you've put so many different levels of obstruction in front of yourself. This is like N level play where you're just so bored of the game because you've beaten it in every single way, and you're so over leveled that you must introduce a set of rules that's so hard and difficult to overcome, it actually makes the game a challenge again. So you've got all these levels of obstruction and no way forward, or like a very narrow way forward, and then you're placing it in front of these services that like, we want to help you, but it seems impossible to help you.
like this, against our will. I just went into the Department of Motor Vehicles, and I asked them, are there any programs available to assist people who cannot afford to renew their tags, but they need to? Because you can't survive in this society without transportation, especially...
Get a job. Maybe get a job. Get some sort of job.
if you live in the vehicle. And the woman was very nice. She walked over and talked to a supervisor, and she came back, and her answer, per her supervisor, was...
He already knew the answer, and he already knew the outcome before he even went in there. So, like, it's just that it's all this kind of time wasting he does, because he doesn't go in there with any hope of actually resolving the issue. It's just, I'm going to waste your time and browbeat you because I have set up a insurmountable amount of like obstructions and difficulties that aren't really real. They're just like very they're very manufactured, and there's no way you could possibly solve my problem. Thus, I can walk away with a smug look in my face and sit down in front of this camera and just go off. Go off on you for not solving this problem that's just like impossible by Paul's criteria. He's the dungeon master.
contact Dakota County to see if they have anything. The first several months.
Because I think we're getting the indication that the Burnsville area just isn't set up for homeless people. Like, it just, I guess, it just doesn't have that many outreach programs and incentives to help homeless people, because maybe it's just like there's not many homeless people in that area, in that particular area.
Months after American Musical's play killed me in March, I have this computer.
They killed you? What do you mean? You're alive, you're talking, you're picking up a laptop. Are you like a reanimated corpse? What's going on?
Filled with so many notes that now they're totally disorganized. It would take forever just to put them all together. The first several months were spent using this phone and that computer with email to contact places like Dakota County. And all they did, just like they did 9 years ago, when without a miracle I would have died because of them, because of their total negligence. The same thing happened this year. All they did, well, here's a phone number you can call. Try this, round and round and round. So I have to sit there and just keep calling, having weird business hours. Call back during this time. Nobody answers the phone. You get an answering machine. I can't effectively ask them to call me back. Send out emails, get no response, or just get a list of more phone numbers. Just round and round.
I wonder if he's like run up against someone who actually will try to work. So they know the bullshit Paul's laying out. So they're gonna like lay it all on the line for Paul. They're gonna like solve every one of his issues. They're gonna take the challenge of, you know, the no address thing, the no tags thing, the no insurance thing, all the different criteria Paul has set up, and they'll solve it one by one by one by one, to the point where Paul's like, what have I got left? I can't move out of this car. Yeah, I literally can't move out of this car now. What are you going to do? Like, they pull the seat out, put him in a wheelchair, and start pushing him around to, like, you know, whatever services that will actually look after him, because they've solved all the problems. I wonder if he's like completely ghosted someone like that in his life, where they can literally pull him out of this and all his manufactured problems. And he's like, I better ghost this person because they see through it.
Round and round until you're dizzy and you just pass out from exhaustion. The same thing that happened 9 years ago when I sold off everything I had then. Dakota County. This year, the suicide hotline, because they didn't want to deal with me. All they ever did was try to get me off the phone because I didn't have a loaded gun to.
Yeah, it's because you don't actually want to commit suicide. So why are you on like a suicide hotline? I don't really get why. Why are you specifically calling a suicide hotline if by your religious beliefs, you know, you won't actually do it? So is there any other outreach phone number, like a depression line or something you could call and speak to them about your problems, without actually taking away resources from people who possibly could have taken a call that wasn't yours that could have saved someone's life? They could have like talked them down. So you're like taking precious time from people who might be standing on the side of a bridge looking down and saying, this is it, I'm done. This suicide hotline is not picking up. They must be, you know, dealing with much bigger problems than mine. And then, you know, just go, well, all right, that's it.
In my head. The minute they learned that I had a religious prohibition against suicide and that I was just being murdered, they wanted nothing to do with me. They just wanted me off the phone.
Yeah. I wonder why, Paul. Like, I wonder why. Like, can you connect the dots? Why wouldn't they want to talk to you?
They don't care about people being alive or not. For some reason, they have some weird obsession with people committing suicide only. But if someone else comes over and murders them and gets away with it, they couldn't care less. It means nothing to them. The death of a human being doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, it's this like linguistic, you know, trickery he plays, and they're like, you've been murdered. Do you want me to call the police? Or you're being murdered? No, you've been murdered. So it's a past tense. So you're dead, right? No. Like, that's not what I mean. And then he goes into the whole diatribe. Is like, I don't know if I've got the time for this. You know, unless this is an emergency, I really need to go on to the next caller.
There's just something about suicide they don't like. In other words, they're the ones who are trying to help themselves. They've got some problem with the idea of people committing suicide, and therefore They set up all these expensive hotlines to prevent people from committing suicide. But they prove and they demonstrate with their actions that they don't actually care if you die.
So is he effectively just trolling them? He's just like calling up to time waste, like just to run them in loops, and eventually they're just like, yeah, you're right, Paul. We don't care about people who are committing suicide, and this is just a money laundering racket. You know, it's a government kickback scheme.
They're allowing the one person that I'm aware of who's left, who had spent all these decades trying to get a coherent, rational project to cure cancer, they're allowing this person to be murdered right in front of everyone's eyes. How many lives would that save if I were able to succeed at that?
What was his plan? Did he have a plan, or is he's going to manage the people who do have a plan sufficiently and in a time-effective manner to get them to produce the cure for cancer? So he doesn't have the cure for cancer, but he will, you know, wrangle the scientists and the people who do, and then get them whipped into shape, get them on point, and by, I think, 2030, he said cancer will be eradicated.
I'm going to die anyway because of American musical supply. This is murder. They don't care about that. These people don't care whether you live or die. I don't know how to make this point any more clear. They have some personal distaste for suicide, so they set up all these programs to prevent suicide. But if you decide not to...
Imagine like you're a lifelong, you know, volunteer to one of these hotlines, and you know, every night you take a little time, and every night you take a little time, and you've done good in the world. You've like effectively talked someone off a bridge, or you know, put down the knife or the gun or whatever the case may be, and then you put this, you know, complete garbage on, and it's like, all right, well, thanks. Like, it's not exactly going to give you the most warm and bubbly feeling about what you've done.
To commit suicide and someone comes along and murders you 5 minutes later, it means nothing to them. So they send me to Dakota County. And they tell me Dakota County will even, their crisis team will send somebody out to meet with you. So I called Dakota County multiple times, and I asked them, send somebody out to meet with me. I have been completely alone for all...
Who was Brianna? Like, it was Brianna, someone like that. That was just like a social worker. I don't know if she was like a crisis response. Maybe she was.
These months, I am completely alone in this world. I need a human being near me to speak to get to know me as a person.
You got Milo. Remember Milo? Poor Milo.
And they refused every single time. And all they did was give me non-working phone numbers. They gave me a phone number that was supposedly for some such program, and it ended up being a program for a theater. They send you through that 360 communities, just one to the next, to the next, to the next, so all of them can keep getting funding and keep their jobs, but they don't do anything. And the Department of Motor Vehicles tells me to contact Dakota County. And if I had left without saying a word, they
Sounds like you got to contact Dakota County then.
probably would have thought they had helped me, but they didn't help me, and it's not their fault. But if the Department of Motor Vehicles doesn't already know whether or not there's a program to help people who cannot afford to use the services of the Department of Motor Vehicles, then who in the world is going to know that? If anybody should know that inside out and backwards, it's the Department of Motor Vehicles. Why are they sending me to Dakota County? Dakota County is useless. Remember the police, when I was talking to them, what did they have to say?
Your vehicle, I mean, I know you live on here, but it's not like a residence. Like a house.
It's not a legal residence, but it is the only place I have. Logically, can you provide me with another place that is a residence I can go to?
We don't have any shelters in Dakota County.
You don't have any shelters in Dakota County. That's exactly. You don't have any showers in Dakota County. You don't have any people who help in Dakota County. You've got a racket that I've been talking about on the internet for 6 years with the social services that does nothing but keep people homeless instead of helping them. That's what you've got. Yeah. So I try to do the best I can to get out of it all by myself with no family, and this is what I get. Yes, there are no shelters in Dakota County. There are no showers in Dakota County. That's why, since the middle of March, the only shower I have had in 8 months, the only shower I have had, despite having diarrhea the entire time, is when I sold off things that I worked hard and honestly earned to pay $468 for a hotel for 1 week, 7 days, ending at the beginning of July. Other than that, I have had no showers in 8 months, thanks to Dakota County. And that's who they want me to call, is Dakota County. These places are absolutely useless. That free hotel for 3 months that they were dangling over me, carrot on a stick. Where does that come from? Dakota County. Dakota County and all the other counties, Hennepin, Ramsey, they all do the same thing. That is...
He didn't want to sign up for it because he was fearful that they would sell his data on. That was the hang-up.
What, when I became homeless 9 years ago, I spent 2 years selling off everything I had, going through that process of nothingness, just lunacy. Nothing ever...
And also, like, it's essentially it's a kickback to the people who keep him homeless in perpetuity.
Came of any of that, nothing. A gas card, a food card. After 2 years, and I was ready to go and die when a miracle saved my life. But if that miracle had not happened, I would have died then, because the situation I was in then is almost exactly the same as the situation.
Who is that guy, Paul? Can you track him down again? He stayed with a family, and they gave him an address, and that set up him being able to apply for AMS, I suppose. Who is the guy? Is he still around? Get in contact.
Situation I'm in now. Except now, my situation is exponentially worse. Dakota County is used.
As far as I remember, he didn't have any ill will towards that man and the family who took him in. Like there was no motherfucking. Usually there's a motherfucking, or like it's like he couldn't do all that he could for me. I'm kind of bitter about it, but no. The last time I heard him speak about it was in a tearful way. So why don't you try to contact this person?
Useless. Everyone who works for that county, claiming to help people, should lose their jobs. They don't help people. You've got a project manager here who knows how to get cancer cured. If anybody wanted to cure cancer, which nobody does, because there's too much money in that industry. There's too much money in anti-smoking. The most profitable industry on the face of the earth, anti-smoking. Anti-smoking. No product, no service. All they do is propagate fear and hatred, divide the country in half to get one half to hate and fear the other half.
I never quite realized, I worked out why he has, outside of like the lobbying aspect, it's all a racket. It doesn't really exist for a good purpose, and it's not effective, I want to say. It's like these lobbying groups that, whip up these marketing campaigns of like, in Australia, it's pretty like, I'm not a smoker, but it like, you see these packet of smokes that have like, you know, people with late stage lung cancer and like, what are the effects and all these like very gruesome images on the box as you buy it, as a way of like trying to dissuade you from actually smoking, especially young people. And like, that's the kind of lobby Paul hates for reasons. Because like, I mean, the freedom of choice, like, I don't want to see a nanny state like Australia is a fucking nanny state. And at some point we are going to probably like completely ban the selling of tobacco and cigarettes. I think New Zealand already like have a date in mind, so we're next in line. But I like the idea of the freedom of choice, but also like, why would you hitch your wagon so hard to like an anti-smoking campaign? All right, like maybe they do make a lot of money through nefarious ways and means and kickbacks and schemes, but at the end, it's like, it's to get people to stop smoking, Paul, and possibly ending cancer, because you can't end cancer because you don't have the money or the funds or the resources to do it because of AMS. Oh, maybe it's the idea is like, I can cure cancer, thus the regulations and the strangulation on the tobacco industry isn't necessary, and smoking's okay because I have the cure for cancer that's going to negate all the bad effects of smoking.
Dividing families, dividing everybody, and filling them with lies. Trillions of dollars they get for doing that. No product, no service. I've been fighting that my whole adult life. While the very people who fired me probably do what? After work, go home, turn on the television, maybe drink some alcohol? That's all they've done with their entire lives. And these people are killing me.
Unless he's like a hardcore like smoker and nicotine fiend, like, who takes that stance outside of, Marlboro or Big Tobacco? Who takes this stance?
Me. So unless some project manager who knows how to do that, like I do, comes along and burns Dakota County to the ground and starts it all over again as something that actually works, I am sick of hearing people tell me to call Dakota County. This is worse than a Monty Python skit. Can you imagine? It has been a decade. Every time, I just have a simple question for an organization that should know the answer. It's their expertise. Well, you should just call Dakota County. Here's the contact for Dakota County. Well, why don't you try contacting Dakota County? About 3 days from now, I lose this phone. I can't afford another phone card, and it's coming up, so I'm not going to have a phone to call them with. I've hardly been able to be on the internet. I still don't know who's president. It's been 2 weeks. I still don't know who's elected president. This thing is dying. It's just dying. The battery is already dead in the car. I have to use this thing to jumpstart the car every time I start the car now. Every time. And then as soon as it starts, I have to hook up the power inverter so I can charge this thing so that I have something to start the car with the next time.
It is sort of a good analogy for all Paul's problems. It's like, it's a problem within 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 a problem. So it gets so expansive and so unbelievably hard to solve by like his own creation that it's nearly impossible to solve without a lot of time and money that he doesn't have, that he won't get, he won't seek out. So it essentially becomes this like unsolvable puzzle.
and they tell me to call Dakota County, I should have been able to walk into that Department of Motor Vehicles, and every person there should have had the resources available, either in a handbook or on their computer, to look up the answer, specific answer to my specific question. Are you going to tell me that no Minnesotans have ever had financial crisis at the time they need to renew the tags on their car, but they need their car so that they can get to work to make the money to pay for
Mike's Foundation. Oh, I guess he's used his one and only Mike's Foundation.
things like the tags on your car? This isn't rocket science. Why can't Minnesota figure this out?
That beeping is his timer. He set a timer and he hasn't shut it off. It's like, you know, the ceiling birds in people's hallways that never stop chirping. He needs to feed it.
Months ago, I contacted the Minnesota legislators, senators and representatives, Minnesota, at the State House in St. Paul, for this district where I am in Burnsville.
And that's like Elan Omar, which, you know, I think she would probably do a lot more for you than you think.
Not one of them has gotten back to me. What are they getting paid to do? What are they receiving paychecks to do? They didn't contact me back. This Dean Phillips guy, the one who puts up all these roadblocks to make sure that no citizen can get anywhere near him, even as his website brags about how he helps people all the time. I guess doing nothing exhausted him because he decided not to run for re-election. And since I have no idea who won these elections, I don't know what happened there either. Angie Craig, who I asked to help when Governor Walz had a stay-at-home order that criminalized all homeless people and took away my job out of all those people in that office, at least 70, maybe 100. Only person who lost their job throughout that stay-at-home order was the homeless person who can't work at home by definition. I go to Angie Craig, the U.S. representative, for help, and they send me a form letter. Can you guess what the form letter said? Call Dakota County.
Well, he didn't lose his job. He was maybe furloughed and rehired, because what else happened? He was with AMS, COVID happened, and then he's still with AMS.
So I wrote back to them, and I said, that's not what I asked you. You did not answer my question. And I gave them bullet points. I want specific answers to these specific questions. Angie Craig, U.S. representative. They didn't even respond. But in all those years...
Just so incendiary. Like, why would you respond to this guy? Just looking for a fight. Spoiling for a fight.
Since 2020, my mailbox is flooded. Other than a couple of musical plug-in companies, the only person who has sent me more unwanted spam junk mail in the last 4 years is Angie Craig, who keeps...
Yeah, you're on the mailing list now.
Keeps sending me emails, every one of which asks me to help her with her twisted agenda, when she did nothing for me. When I do find out who won these elections, that happened 2 weeks ago, did Angie Craig win again? If so, why?
Did she win? Let's see. Angie Craig? Alright. Yeah, she won. Yeah, so she beat Angie Craig, beat out Joey Trab. Yeah, you're getting more Angie Craig, Paul.
What does she actually do? This is why.
Alright, I'm going to see Angie Craig. Is she forward thinking on homeless people? Oh, Lord. First result is someone actually trying to attack her. A homeless man attacked her. But she was attacked in Washington. The homeless guy got 27 months in prison for punching. What? Yeah, fits the bill. Yeah, I can't really see any of her policies or positions because literally a homeless guy assaulted her. So that's the only thing that's coming up in the news filters.
I have not been able to get out of this in a decade. And this is why I'm going to die in this car somewhere between Thanksgiving and Christmas of 2024.
Well, that's not quite true. You were in a house for a while. This was just another issue drove you out of that house. My former employee in Prairie, Minnesota, American Music Plan. Well, they're not even one agency. Harder than every man. Who are the real laziest bums? I do not deserve to die. Let me have a look at. So, what is Dakota County actually What does it encompass? How big is it? I mean, where is Burnsville in relation to the map I'm looking at? I think he's almost on the borderline of this district, of this county. Yeah, he is literally on the borderline. So Burnsville is in and around here or here. So he is just over from Scott County. Now he can't deal with Hennepin, because that's like Minneapolis proper. So he goes up here. There are a lot of shelters and a lot of outreach, but it's very inner city and urban. So that brings problems of a different kind for Paul. He doesn't want to be up here. He wants to be here. Would he go to Scott County? Like, what can Scott County do for him? Because he's not a resident of Dakota County. He has no ties. He has nothing really to keep him there outside of this car. So he could possibly hop over county lines and go to Scott County. Homeless outreach. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. So for Scott County, total homeless persons in Scott County as of 2019. So this must be like some sort of census that's been done. Estimated. So I think Paul usually like says double that or triple that, which I don't necessarily disagree with. Sheltered families 83. Sheltered there's 185. Family members. So they've maybe facilitated getting people maybe with extended families to get them sorted. Sheltered individuals and families. Sheltered with other family members. Unsheltered individuals. So that would be more or less. I mean, it depends. Like, what is the criteria for sheltered? Because Paul is sheltered. He's just not housed. He does have a car. He has shelter from the elements. Yeah, I don't really know what. If you are in a vehicle, are you technically homeless, or are you sort of in a kind of limbo state? So it's up and down, up and down. I don't know why there's no numbers past a certain period, but hopefully we get some new data at some point. All right, let's go to. Let's get into Dakota. So this is where Paul is. This is where Burnsville is. It's much the same. So families usually get priority. It's usually the way it's done. The way I understand it's always done is if you have small children, battered wives fleeing DV, they will get priority. So there are 14 families out there in the world. Unsheltered, chronic unsheltered. So Paul is probably one of these 60. He would have been one of these 60 in, I guess, 2019. This is not the greatest metric. It's like needs a little bit more detail on the criteria. Farmers housing inventory. Total number of beds in Dakota County, Minnesota. It's nearly 2,000 as of, I want to say, years ago. Do we have numbers? Yeah, everything stops at 2019. in all categories of housing? Is that just, what's available in shelters, what's available in homes that haven't sold but could be sold to possible tenants? Like, it could be a government incentivized housing, like a project, like a project housing. Emergency shelters so 293 in 2019. Hard to say where that number is now. Yeah, so that might be like a family situation. Someone takes them in. I think Paul was in a situation like that way back when, before he got AMS, and kind of lived with a dude, or lived in he lived with a family that wasn't his. Permanent supportive vulnerable population. I'm guessing Paul isn't within this criteria, but he is vulnerable. So I think I mean, we also have to take into account that he's actually declining the offer of the hotel. So a lot of these hotels are now being coalesced or brought into the fold, where we can turn these, maybe defunct hotels or hotels that went belly up. The government has subsumed them and worked them into, like, reintroducing them as possible homeless shelters or homeless hotels. So perhaps the number of beds available has gone way up, and Paul has declined it. Rapid rehab, rental assistance services, the purpose of helping people housing increase. Yeah, so this is all out of date numbers. So there's nothing to Matrix Emergency Shelter in Apple Valley. Usually the criteria is it's women and children first. Yeah, Paul doesn't want this scenario here. You might as well be in jail. So this would be Paul's situation. So let's just go with the fact that they're counting a man in a car as unsheltered. So 139, 154. Big drop there. Comes back up again. Comes up again. Homeless behavior and performance. Average length of time on this days. So that's how quickly they lapse. Yeah, it's pretty low, but it's not nothing. Number of people who are homeless for the first time. The numbers in the last 4 years are much more interesting to me. I wish they had them. Alright, that's a good rate of return. More than 50% for the most part. So you got Scott, got Hennepin, Ramsey, no, that's out. Washington, definitely out. And then you got Wisconsin. What about Goodhue or Rice? I'm thinking Ramsey. What does Ramsey look like in terms of homeless? Oh yeah, it's much higher. What about Rice? What about Goodhue? Oh, well, all right. So, yeah, Hennepin, big, much bigger homeless issue there. I'm thinking all these numbers have just stopped in 2019. Yeah, but obviously, much bigger outreach program. A lot of it's Christian, um, and it depends on whether or not, like, so if it's a Christian church, like, Saint Olaf Church, is this an apostate church? Is this a church that's lost its way? And, when he says that, it's usually a church that's just a service or like something that's pissed him off. So they're like now an apostate church. There is like a Salvation Army little store I see in his videos every now and again. It's in the Burnsville area. I just wonder if it's has a shelter or an outreach program attached to it. Probably not. Maybe it's just a sorting area. Yeah, I mean, there is a problem for Paul in terms of some of these are just like exclusively youth or exclusively women and children orientated, and then the rest is a hodgepodge. What's like near him? I'm probably wasting my time because he's either it's like some sort of apostate church or it's like part of these 360 community thing that is burnt him too many times. Is there anything in Burnsville in particular? Oh, this is the one. All right, so I think, yeah, I want to say the only thing even close to him is the Mission Outpost, which is the Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, which he's definitely he had a falling out with big time. I think this is like where his apostate church sort of thing like possibly grew out of, or where that got going was the Prince of Peace. Yeah, I think the bigger problem is that Dakota County just doesn't have a very large homeless population. If you go into Hennepin, if you go into like that Ramsey or something like that, it's much larger and it's like warranted. Like, of course, you're going to have that kind of like shelter system outreach programs to reflect how many homeless people you do have. And unfortunately, all the numbers seem to end at 2019. There hasn't been like additional surveys or studies I can find or care to find really. But for where Paul is, like, he's in a no man's land in terms of like actual viable outreach programs. The only one is that Prince of Peach, Prince of Peach, Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, which I'm pretty sure is like the apostate church he's always talking about. And they only seem to they're kind of a pantry or a food dispensary, and he hasn't talked about them for a while, so I'm thinking they're completely out. And But it depends. Like there was that comment in the other video where this person claims he's in Eden Prairie, which is Hennepin County, and he is in and out of a shelter there. But I think the goal is to stay in Burnsville, but Burnsville itself has no real dedicated homeless shelter. And Dakota County doesn't seem to have much to many, and if they do, it'll probably be mostly for emergency and for possibly like DV situations and stuff like that for women and children and teens. Because there is the one video where I don't know which one he went into, but it was like it's in that like Paul story video where he literally just stumbles into some sort of women's shelter and he's completely confused. He's completely like, huh? What?
Hey, just a few questions then. Are you male or female?
I'm a man.
I'm sorry, you don't qualify for our shelter then. It is for women only.
Where can I find a shelter for men?
The nearest one is up in Ramsey County.
She's trying to tell him to go to a certain area or like a certain county, and he's like, well, I don't have the fuel for it. So, it's an old kind of like, it's out of Paul's playbook. It's an old little parlor trick of his. And yeah, it goes back to what I mean is like he's set up this very like hard to beat metagame where he's tasking these individuals and agencies with solving an issue that like can't possibly be solved because Paul has basically insulated himself from being helped. Yeah, that's what it is, and it's just like, how despicable is this? You're like cheating. You're treating this as it's some sort of like game to be played, and I'm gonna just like endlessly badger these people and their time and resources just to to ask a question you already know the answer to in the end. And yeah, like for anyone who's in and around these areas, sign off and speak up if you have any sort of dealings. Well, not just Paul, but with people in the area. And it's like, could you viably set Paul up, even if he were to put all these different little barriers and blocks in your way? Could you still help him despite himself? Or is it just he's made it too abstract and obscure in terms of like logistically helping him and putting him through the system that unless he actually solves a few of these issues first, then you can help him? Or is it just like it might be impossible? Yeah, it's the government's incompetency is at play here, and it's nothing to do with this like manufactured homelessness of Paul that's been going on for a decade. And like, I think he's burnt out all the goodwill like through these 360 agencies, and something like the Prince of Peace would be another one where it's like this guy's not really acting in good faith. He's not here for the right reasons, and maybe we won't give him a few tins of like beans and shit. All right, guys, till next time.